In this video, we are going to talk about how to build a successful practice using my ultimate practice blueprint, regardless of whether you are a homeopath or any other complementary and alternative medicine practitioner who wants to use homeopathy powerfully. So the Success in Practice Blueprint has become my life's work. I've been in practice for 25 odd years. I've been mentoring and coaching practitioners for 15 years on how to grow a successful practice using homeopathy. Now, if you've seen my free Success to Practice workshops that I hold every year in February, so they run for 15 days. They go for about 10 to 12 hours. We have full-on tutorials, blueprints. They're really amazing. They're free and they're great. So today, what I've decided is I would see if I could do a condensed version of that workshop and get it done, within 10 to 20 minutes. All right. So the first question is, why do you need a Success in Practice blueprint for a homeopathic practice? So the real reason is we can grow a practice without overwhelm, with complete confidence from the first session, so that you can prescribe the best remedy that actually works. And you continue to build the momentum, so the majority of your patients actually come back for follow-ups until they can complete the healing journey with your homeopathy. Now, this is guaranteed to give them the best potential of homeopathy that they deserve and you deserve, right? So let's look traditionally. What is a homeopathic consult like? The first consult. It's this long consult that goes on for an hour or 2 hours or more. And at the end of that, most practitioners will hopefully get the information they need to prescribe that so-called simillimum. The problem with this method is that it is quite taxing and stressful and overwhelming for both the practitioner and the patient. Especially if your practice and your patient is new to homeopathy, or say if your patient has a pathological condition and they have a complex sort of multisystemic damage or multi-layered case which has been built through months and decades of illnesses. All they want is something to give them some form of relief for their most pressing issue. And in such cases, trying to dig on to get the homeopathic information that you've been taught to gather in school can exhaust them. So patients get repelled and they start dreading that process. And as a practitioner, you burn out, you get desperate, you start throwing remedies in desperation, and it's really frustrating. So this traditional process works in a very small percent of patients that we see in most contemporary practices as CAM practitioners today. Most of our patients actually come to us with complex systemic conditions where homeopathic medicine is their only hope, where conventional medicine has nothing to offer. So the idea of the Success in Practice blueprint is that we have a system to recognize where the patient is at so that you can reach them at their stage and where they are, you can reach them where they are rather than trying to push and pull them towards where you want them to be at this point in time. So, that is the whole idea here. So how do you do this? Now, the whole process is to layer your homeopathic treatment process in 3 different types of consults that cover 3 key strategies. Strategy 1 is the startup strategy. It is for the most superficial layers in your patient's complaint. Strategy 2 is the classical strategy. It is for those intermediate layers after these superficial layers have unfolded. And strategy 3 is the breakthrough strategy. It is for the deepest core layers. Now, strategy 1, which is the startup strategy, is all about their most pressing needs now. Their main pathology, their main diagnostic conditions, or, it could be one condition, it could be multiple conditions, but this is where where they are at. And this is what I call the inflammatory phase. And your focus here is to give them pain relief, to reduce the inflammation, to stop any further organ damage, to remove toxic damage and build up, to initiate repair work of those damaged tissues and remove any of the pathological blocks. And sixth is to nourish and remove the deficiencies. So this is your opportunity to give them their first few ahas. So how do you do this? So this is where you use some of the most powerful stage 1 tools and use the Hahnemannian miasmatic approaches. So what are the tools that you use? The stage 1 tools, I divide them into the old masters approaches or tools, or in the new masters approaches and tools. In the old masters approaches, we have the organotherapy, drainage, and detox. This is based on Burnett's approach, and it is all about repairing organs, boosting the functionality of those organs, and detoxing any of the, toxic material that has been a product of inflammation or medications. It's also based on the French homeopaths and, Venier's approach. Then we have the isopathic approach, the tautopathic approach, which is again based on removing any of the toxic damage due to conventional treatments or suppressive treatments. Then we have the biochemic approach for removing deficiencies. In the new masters approaches, we have Dr. Ashok's blockbuster approach. Then we have Dr. Joe's ODD approach, which is the contemporary version of using the organ therapy. Then we have Dr. Isaac's vaccine damage. And then we have, so-called miasmatic approaches. Now, apart from these stage 1 tools, you're going to use, concurrent to that, a miasmatic tool. And when you're using the startup approach, the powerful miasmatic tool that you use is the Hahnemannian miasmatic approach, right? So together, the Hahnemann's miasmatic approach and these stage 1 tools form a powerful synergy to help the patient move to the next level and break these pathological blocks. And so the types of remedies you're going to use are obviously homeopathic specifics. You're going to use sarcodes, you're going to use nosodes, you're going to use mother tinctures, lobe dilutions, and biochemic remedies. And these are approaches and skills that you need when your patient is at this stage and this level of inflammatory phase. Now, the mistake most practitioners make when they are using is then they're just using specifics. They're just throwing one set of specifics without a strategy. And the key to use a powerful combination of a specific or an organ remedy with the Hahnemannian miasmatic approach, together they form a powerful synergistic process to create the aha that your patient needs, to create the block busting process and create a deeper healing mechanism with this combination than just throwing specifics which may not stick in these patients. So the next strategy is the classical strategy. Now, obviously, these strategies are being used only when the patient unfolds to relieve these intermediate layers and when the patient is ready to go to this next level. Not all patients want to go there, or they just might be happy with your startup approaches, which is cool, and you respect that. So a lot of patients show tremendous transformation with just the startup approach because you're using a powerful combination of stage 1 tools and Hahnemann's miasmatic approach there. But if they want to go to the next level, then this is what I call the growth phase. Now, the growth phase is a very interesting phase because physically, what's happening is there are new cell growths happening physically as you start repairing the organs, the pathological blocks removed, the systems are healing, and the patients experience some ahas because of the trapped localized energy being released and also some form of detox happening. So they have a higher level of energy and they have a belief now that they can heal. And your focus at this stage is now to boost this sense of well-being and energy at a general and a systemic level. As you can see, there is new cell growth happening. The cell growth is not just physically, locally, it's also happening mentally. New neurons are created, connections are happening, new belief systems and beliefs are positive beliefs are happening, changing their belief system, their perception and their outlook of looking at their process at their illness as well changes. You're fostering healthier coping mechanisms. You want to ensure that they can bounce back from these triggers, from these exciting factors that are prevalent in their situation, right? So this is mentally and physically as well. You can see, the baseline systems are boosted up. You can, you're regulating their nervous systems, their hormonal systems are getting back on track, the immunological systems are balancing and realigning, the metabolism getting back on track. So this is the focus when you're working in that growth phase, that intermediate phase, as these, strong pathological systemic blocks starts unraveling. So for the classical strategy, you're basically looking at using stage 2 and 3 approaches. Now, what are those approaches? In the old masters approach, we have the Hahnemannian approach, the Bonninghausen approach, and the Kenton approach. These are our bread and butter approaches. You've all learned them in your schools. And along with that, we also have therapeutic and the keynote approaches by Boricki, by Fatag, by Allen, by Nash, by Farrington. So these are the approaches that form the bulk of the classical strategy. Now, can you see? It is not the first strategy. It is the strategy after you've had the startup approach doing its work for a few weeks, for a few months sometimes, right? And hence, the classical strategy has its time and space, and you have to be able to use it at the right time for the right patient. Now, in the new approaches, the new tools for the classical strategy, you have the Sankaran's delusional approach, Jeremy. So these are my favorite new masters, right? There could be lots and lots of approaches and strategies at classical with the contemporary approaches, but these are the three key people that I really love using. One's the Sankaran's delusional approach, Jeremy's approach using Chinese holistic concepts, and they really work very well at the classical level. And then in the miasmatic approaches, I use the Kenton miasmatic approach here. And so remember, in the startup approach, you're using the Hahnemannian's miasmatic approach. In the classical strategies, you're using the Kenton miasmatic approaches. And then we come to the transformation phase, which is the third phase. And this is, again, not for all patients. Not every patient will go to the stage. There are so many patients who do wonderfully well in just the startup approaches and the classical approaches and the strategies. But this is for patients who want to take to the next level and go full on, right? So this is the deepest level of their health and healing at the source of their disturbed vitality and their disturbed energy patterns. So sometimes, it can be traced even at the prenatal stage when, in the fetal life, or sometimes even generational trauma can be tapped through this sort of phase, right? So this is where you help them transform beyond their just physical and mental health. You help restore and align them so that they can lead a balanced life, resisting stress and illness, and go beyond health. They live life to the fullest. They realize their true potential, their true calling, and they tap into, they transform their life as a result of that. And this is the breakthrough strategy, and this is the power of the breakthrough strategy. What approaches actually help at this stage? Now, in the old masters approaches, we have the grand generalization approach by Bonninghausen and Bolger. So we have these two very highly intelligent old masters who have actually created this approach, which is underused by homeopaths today. So this is a wonderful approach for that. And then with the new masters, we have all these contemporary kingdom and source approaches, which have been, with the new contemporary homeopaths like Jan Scholten, Sankaran, in the plants, we have Dr. Yakir, we have Mahesh Gandhi, these in the animals world. So they have actually helped build that breakthrough strategies in, and the miasmatic approaches that you're going to use here is the Sankaran's miasmatic approach, right? So this is the way you layer. based on how the patient comes to you, and the strategies will form as the way the patient heals and unfolds, right? Now, what makes it even more powerful is as you start strategizing and picking approaches and tools based on what the patient presents and the way he or she unfolds, you are also, what makes it even more powerful is the mental triggers that you take, which boost your authority and credibility right from day one of your practice. And these are the ripples and the side effects, which are positive side effects, which help boost your practice as a result. So one is that you are building tremendous value. You are giving a patient an outcome in every consult. Not by telling them, about homeopathy, not by telling them how great you are or how great your homeopathy is, but by showing and demonstrating them how homeopathy works. You're not digging them, you're not stressing them, you're not frustrating them. You are matching them with tools that work for them at, where they are. You are basically helping create ahas irrespective of your classical approaches or your favorite approaches or your simillimums, working or not. So, and along the way, as they heal, as they evolve, you take them through the process, you're answering questions, you're educating them, and they're seeing results. They're seeing how the remedies are working. They're seeing how you're dosing, and they are, and there could be homeopathic aggravations in the process because, you're detoxing them at various levels, but they are willing to go through their journey because they can see the positives and the hope, and, it is a pace that works for them. So you're building trust. These triggers that they're faced with, they can come back to their, they can bounce back better. And that's why they are more and more inclined to come back to you for the follow-ups, because they can see results every step of the way, not by forcing them to go to, a classical or breakthrough strategy right in that first consult. The other thing what's happening is that as you're building this, you are building momentum. And as they start healing and as they start evolving, you can see that when one person heals, and even if you put them, 2 or 3 steps, so they are at point 0 and you're taking them to point 10. And even if they are at step 3 or 4 in that healing process, they will tell other people. And, it's a word of mouth. And they are talking about their experiences in their little communities where they share their experiences. People will pay attention to people that they know and trust. That creates social proof. So you don't need to advertise. You don't need to promote. You don't need to, go out and speak about how great homeopathy is. Your patients are your best, people who would talk about and, create awareness about homeopathy, because they are telling their own stories. They are telling their own experiences. So sometimes, even in the first 3 or 4 consults, even if the patient hasn't completely healed and transformed, you have established a lot of value through just your startup strategies, even without giving the simillimum. That is the secret here. And so this is basically the way to go. And this is how you take those baby steps and you create the transformation. And you do that after one patient and the second patient and the third patient. And you do that at a pace where both of you are enjoying that journey. And this is the way you heal and transform and build your practice. So, this is, I know it's a super quick pass through all these 3 phases of consults, and I cover a lot more in detail in my free workshop. As I've said, my Success in Practice workshop, it's a once in a year event that happens in February each year. And we have thousands of students join in each year. So don't forget to join in when I open it in February. In the meantime, if you want to keep, you want me to keep you updated, then you can, go down and click a link and get my free book on the stages. And plus, you can also learn about these Success in Practice Blueprint and template in my book, which I call the Next Stage book. I will drop a link of that below this video in the comment section. But this is the book where I go full on and talk about these 3 strategies and give you plenty of case studies from my own practices, from my students' practices, to help you see how they are implemented in real lives, right? So that's a super compressed version of the Stages Blueprint for building a successful practice. And obviously, if you have any comments, any questions on this, please don't hesitate to put them below, and go and give your best to your patients this week. Take care.